What up guys, and welcome to a pretty urgent video here where I'm going to cover Merlin Chain and their upcoming airdrop to everyone that's staking Bitcoin or some of these other assets. So in this video, I'm going to go over everything you need to know about how to participate in this upcoming launch, as well as how to qualify for 4 different airdrops over the course of this video. Without further ado, guys, let's get into it. First things first, I want to give a brief background of what Merlin Chain is. And for those that don't know, the Bitcoin ecosystem has been blowing up over the past year, and the amount of inscriptions and ordinals and BRC20 tokens and stamps and track and all of these things that have been coming out is just absolutely insane. Now, one interesting thing that caught my eye recently was Miles actually posted a thread of all of these different VCs and major companies in the crypto space and detailing what exactly they think is going to perform in the market over the course of the bull run. And one of the common themes you'll see in this thread is a lot of them are big believers in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ecosystem, especially since the adoption is going to hopefully increase as the learning gets easier in this complicated ecosystem. Now, because of all of this rapid growth, there are tons of transactions and the Bitcoin network has a hard time handling them and gets congested and has high transaction/gas fees because of that. So very similar situation to what happened with Ethereum. And one of the reasons why we had all these different layer 2s and rollups come out for Ethereum, such as Polygon. And basically it would just compress these different transactions and then submit them as one unit. And then that way the transactions would go through a lot easier and it would be a lot less expensive. What's interesting with Merlin Chain in particular is that not only is it a rollup, but it also uses ZK tech. And most importantly, it's actually native L1 assets, which is a big deal. I'll have this article from Cointelegraph in the description of this video for you guys to learn a little bit more information, but it goes into detail about all of this congestion and the dilemma and looking for different scaling solutions such as a layer 2. And Merlin Chain actually came out. It's one of Bitcoin's layer 2s and it's developed by the Bitmap team that has absolutely killed the space and been doing an incredible job. And they also built out the BRC420 protocols, which actually allow for much more complex inscriptions. And this was actually something that was pretty widely adopted so far. They even launched this thing called their blue boxes, and they're going for over $30,000 as well, with millions of dollars of transactions. So this is definitely one of those solid teams to pay attention to. As I was saying a little bit earlier, one of the big things about this layer 2 is that compared to other Bitcoin L2s that are making attempts at the moment, one of the key features of Merlin Chain is that it is Bitcoin native. They believe that the L2 of Bitcoin should not just be about transferring money inexpensively or just being able to have the dApps, but should be about further innovating to unlock the potential of Bitcoin through its native assets, users, and protocols. Only Bitcoin native innovations can continue to power the ecosystem rather than replicating the way Ethereum works. So really interesting stuff and is one of the big differentiators with this layer 2. Another important thing to note about this is that the Merlin Chain supports Bitcoin native wallets, also powered by the Particle Network's account abstraction. So users can use their Bitcoin wallets to seamlessly switch between layer 1 and layer 2, and users can also experience Bitcoin swaps with other tokens such as stablecoins at any time without having to switch to an EVM network. And also, their team has already been developing a lot of different dApps to go into this ecosystem, as well as other teams building stuff such as different decentralized exchanges, different launchpads, different mass inscription networks, and a lot more. The very last note that I want to put in here is that because of their ZK rollup, they're able to do things way cheaper and way faster than the main of Bitcoin layer 1. And this is very important because if Bitcoin is already experiencing a decent amount of congestion, then just wait until the bull run, or just wait until this becomes a lot easier to understand. And one of the main goals outside of the scaling and outside of reducing transaction cost and outside of increasing transaction speeds is to really make the onboarding into the Bitcoin ecosystem a lot easier. And they're even allowing EVM compatible wallets such as MetaMask to be able to operate within this ecosystem, simply because Bitcoin ordinals and all of this ecosystem can be difficult to understand. Now that you know a little bit more about this actual layer 2, how do you actually get involved? Well guys, about 2-3 days ago, they actually opened up their whole entire Merlin seal, which is the biggest fair launch of layer 2. And what they're doing is they're taking 20% of their MERL tokens, which is the main governance token of this platform, and they're giving it to people that are now providing Bitcoin or Ethereum or different stable coins into this program. time. And what's going to happen is you're actually going to be able to get liquid versions of these different assets and be able to mess around with the DeFi protocols to make an even higher additional yield. And you can see here about 20%, like I said, is going to this one seal alone. They're also having some for builders, some for holders, some for validators, and some for users, but we don't know the full details on that yet. Basically, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to go on their main site, which I'll show you guys in a second, and you're going to be able to put Bitcoin, ETH, stablecoins, or this other list of assets that they have down here. We even have some BRC20 tokens that you can use as well. And what they're doing is they're tracking the USD dollar value, and on a daily basis, they are giving you M points. And the more M points you have, the more of this Merlin token you're going to get, or this MERL token at the end of this campaign. Now, one thing to note is when you actually add your Bitcoin or your assets to this stake, you are locking those assets until April. So think at least 2 months here. So that's one of the downsides of doing what I'm about to show you, is that you're going to have that 2-month lockup. And on top of that, there could always be some sort of smart contract hack, which is something that everyone listening should be aware of regardless of the protocol. Just to show you all a little bit further of a breakdown of the timeline, right now in early February, this happened a couple days ago, you can now stake those different assets. Then in a couple weeks, you're going to be able to get liquid staking tokens and be able to use that within the ecosystem. In March, you're going to be able to claim these different rewards. And then in April, you're going to be able to withdraw all of the tokens that you're staking. Now that all that's out of the way, how do you get involved in this ecosystem and get this airdrop, as well as 3 other airdrops that are on my list? Well, the easiest thing to do if you just want to participate in this one is you can go to their merlinchain.io/bridge.staking. You can hit this bridge to Merlin seal, and then you can connect your Unisat wallet. If you don't have a Unisat wallet already, it's a Chrome extension that you can download, and you can actually send Bitcoin to this, and this is how you're going to be able to interact in the ecosystem. One thing to note is that when you first open up your wallet, make sure the address type is your Taproot P2TR, and you're going to know it's the correct wallet when it says BC1P. Once you have Bitcoin in here, you'll literally be able to connect your Unisat wallet. You'll be able to put in the amount of Bitcoin or the amount of ordinals or whatever asset you want to do. You're going to put an amount in, and then you can start hitting staking. And then at any point in time, you can hit check my points to get a breakdown of how many points you're having. Another important thing to note is that there's also a referral program where if you select to be a captain, you can now invite 5 other people into your team. And the more Bitcoin within this team that is deposited, the more rewards you're going to get. Or if you're invited from someone else, you can simply be a member and you can now get a yield from that. Now on to the more complicated part that may or may not be worth your time, but it's going to qualify you for a few more airdrops and is the reason why this video is urgent. Now, 1% of the supply of this token is actually going to the People's Launchpad. And on the People's Launchpad, you're actually going to pretty much be able to get this token for completely for free, because there is only a $1,000 Launchpad valuation for 1% of the total supply. So this is obviously going to pull probably 100x or more. A lot of people are comparing Merlin Chain to something like Polygon for Ethereum, because Polygon was the first roll up for Ethereum. And now we're seeing something similar with this actual Merlin Chain. What you're going to do on this site is you actually want to connect your Unisat wallet. At the top, there's going to be something that says join now. I'll also put an invite code where you can be invited and you can go through this process. Once you actually join, you're going to have an ability to connect your Unisat wallet, and then it's going to make you follow their Twitter, link your Twitter account, and link your Discord account. And once you do this, you're going to be fully connected, and you're going to be able to see this main page where you can invite additional members to increase your power. The more power you have, the more of an allocation you're going to get in this launch. And you can also stake the Ally token. If you have that token, I wouldn't recommend going out and buying it for this because there isn't that much time left. But if you have the Ally token, you can stake it and get an additional power. And then on top of that, if you move over 0.02 Bitcoin, which is about $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, you're going to maximize the amount of power that you get from staking it on here. So if you're someone that wants to maximize it, get that 0.02 Bitcoin and put it in here. You don't actually get any additional rewards that I know of if it's actually above that 0.02. So I would stick to that 0.02 number if you're going to do it. One thing that that I really want to stress here is that this may or may not be worth your time depending on the amount of gas fees that you have to spend. Because as you see, there is only 1 day left for you to actually go and do this if you're someone that wanted to do this. And because there's over 600,000 participants already for only 1% of the supply, most likely you're not going to get that much of an allocation, and your gas fees were probably more expensive than it was worth. But I at least wanted to show this to you guys for anyone that wanted to be involved, because there's also going to be more launches in the future on people's Launchpad. So it might be a good idea to have all of this set up already and have that knowledge of how to do it. To qualify for the next airdrops, because this was all for the MERL token, there is the Merlin swap token that's going to come out, as well as dub map, as well as dub 420. What you're going to want to do for this is you're going to want to hit this bridge to chain tab, and you're going to want to send about 0.005 Bitcoin over to this Merlin chain. And once again, you can have this all connected on your Unisat wallet. Once you do this, you can now go to merlinswap.org/trade/swap. And this is where you can make different swaps on this platform. Now, this DEX was actually created by the team, and they're going to have a separate token, Merlin Swap, just for this specific DEX. Now, the more you trade on this DEX, I'm guessing the more tokens you're actually going to get. So maybe this is something you're going to want to farm. But what I'm doing is I'm simply taking 0.005 Bitcoin, I'm bridging it over, and then I'm going to provide liquidity into the HU, and WBTC pool. So that way I can do a swap as well as provide liquidity. And that might be the minimum requirement needed in order to qualify for that Merlin swap airdrop. To walk you guys through the process, all I did was I said, okay, I want HU, which is like a meme coin over on Bitcoin. Then I did 0.001, and then I was able to get this HU token. Then what I did is I did the same exact thing where I took 0.001 Bitcoin and I put that into wrapped Bitcoin. And be patient, guys. Sometimes the swaps can take a while for it to actually show up. So don't be worried if you're not seeing it right away. Once you have those two different tokens, you can actually then go to the pools tab and you can provide liquidity. And the reason we're doing this specific pair is because it has the most amount of liquidity. And because of that, it also has the most amount of volume while still getting a decent APR. And just like other chains out there, the liquidity process is pretty simple. We're just going to pair the HU with the wrapped Bitcoin, and you're going to have that 0.001 Bitcoin worth of each of them. And once you do that, you're going to be able to approve both of those pairs. You're going to hit create, and now you're providing liquidity. And by doing this, you'll hopefully qualify for the Merlin swap airdrop as well. The very last thing that I recommend doing once you've completed the steps is go to this tweet that I'll have in the description and follow their account, as well as retweet this post. And when you do that, you're then going to be able to fill out this form where you're going to be able to post your Bitcoin address or the address that's showing up on Unisat. And by doing this, you also have a chance of getting some of this dub map as well as some of this W420 token. Now, how much this is going to be worth, I have no idea. But if you've already gone through this whole entire process, you might as well do it. Now that you guys have all the information about what Merlin Chain is, as well as how to actually qualify for these different airdrops in the program, what are my personal thoughts and opinions on Merlin Chain? Where do I see this going? And what are some of the numbers and breakdown? Well, to be honest with you guys, the Bitcoin space is moving so rapidly that there's constantly new protocols and apps and different L2s that are launching. And just here on this sheet is a list of all the different layer 2s that are already out there or that are going to be soon to be out there. And there just isn't enough demand or enough use case for all of these different layer 2s. And I think a lot of this is going to be a bubble where most of these fail. That being said, Merlin Chain has a lot of hype and demand right now. There's a lot of people that are staking their actual Bitcoin to this. And we could see a run, at least in the beginning, especially since the team backing it is such a big deal and has really delivered a lot in the space. Even though I think that this L2 has some short-term potential as well as long-term potential, I want to take a look at the numbers more for the actual release that we can stake our Bitcoin to, because even if you don't believe in the chain at all, you're able to get into this with the only risk of a smart contract hack and having your Bitcoin locked up for 2 months. So you don't actually have to buy any of these different things. Now we know there's 2.1 billion total token supply. We know that 20% is allocated to this program, or around 420 million tokens. And already within the first couple of days, we have 420 million assets being staked. So just remember, the more assets being staked, the less rewards that we're actually going to get individually. So the numbers I'm showing you are on the high end. So this means that for every 1 Bitcoin you have staked, you're going to get 46,000 of their MERL tokens. Every 0.1 Bitcoin is 4,600, and then every 0.01 Bitcoin is 460. Now, I think a lot of people watching this video are probably in the range of under $5,000, I would assume. So I did an example over here. If you actually staked about 0.1 Bitcoin, or about $4,600, and if we hit a $200 million market cap, you're looking at 0.095 per token, which is about $437, or about a 9.5% return within a 2-month period of locking this up, which is actually pretty high in my opinion if this stays at this market cap, because I was holding that Bitcoin anyways. Yes, there's the hack involved that could happen, but you're getting about 9.5%. Then if it goes to around 400 million, it's double that at about 19%, or 874 US dollars. Then it goes to 28.5%, 38%, and 47.5% return if this does go up to $1 billion. Now, I think that the actual amount of tokens we're going to get is going to be significantly less. If it's anything like Manta, I can expect this to maybe drop 3x, 4x than where it's currently at. So by the time you watch this video, make sure you see how much is being staked to see if it's worth it for you. But the earlier you stake, the more points that you can lock in right now when there's less overall Bitcoin being delegated. So to conclude all this, I don't know how well Merlin Chain is going to do in the longer term. There's definitely a lot of competition, but the hype is there. And by simply taking the Bitcoin that I have already on the sidelines and allocating it towards this, I can get access and exposure and an ROI on my Bitcoin while not actually having to buy any other tokens, with only a 2-month lockup and the only risk being a smart contract hack. So for me, it's worth the risk. I'm personally allocating some of my Bitcoin to do this, and I'm going to be claiming that drop and probably selling a decent amount just because there's so much competition in the space, and maybe I'll hold some for a longer run. That wraps up the video for today. And if you're someone that's interested in the Bitcoin ecosystem or just what's hot in the market in general, feel free to subscribe, because I try to cover a lot of what's happening in the ecosystem. And if you're someone that wants an even deeper level of analysis and to be able to find these plays a lot earlier than I'm making YouTube videos on, definitely check out our project called Jelly Cubes on Cardano and join our alpha group, where we're constantly making different plays on the airdrops happening in the ecosystem, different opportunities like Merlin Chain. And if you're someone that specifically watches a lot of Bitcoin stuff or is really into the Bitcoin ecosystem, we have some pretty amazing alpha callers that have been very early to a lot of the things releasing, and honestly have made a pretty insane amount of money. But yeah, that's enough with the shill. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all later.